Tuesday, February 27th, 2024, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So we're going to look at UK housing today, and it looks like there's a move to blame baby boomers. Yes, I think I'm at the edge. I was born in 64. I think I'm the last of the baby boomers. Anyway, they're trying to blame baby boomers, the pensioners, the people over 60, for the housing shortage. And I'm going to show you, though, that they don't talk about the fact that half of England is owned by less than 1% of its population. And we're also going to look briefly at the U.S. Treasury auctions, and I'm going to go over a few terms that you need to understand. I saw that there were some auctions yesterday, I think 2-year and 5-year notes, and they talk a lot about the tail in those auctions, and that's what I'm going to cover. Before we get into UK housing, I just wanted to let you know that Miles Franklin, my U.S. affiliate for precious metals, they've got some specials this week. They've got silver maple leaves, 1 ounce silver maple leaves for just $3.39 over spot. They've got 1 ounce Valcambi gold bar, only $59 over spot. And they've got 1 ounce palladium bars. I have to say, I don't own any palladium, but if you're interested, it's only $119 over spot. And you can see there that you can either send them an email, info@milesfranklin.com, and mention Mario or Monaco 64, or you can call them on that toll-free number there, 1-800-822-8080. So back to the UK housing situation. And yes, there's an article yesterday in the Daily Telegraph on the money section, and it says where baby boomers are refusing to downsize and fueling a housing shortage, young stuck in expensive rental sector as pensioners hold on to family-sized homes. So let's go through this briefly, this article. We won't read the whole thing. I just want to give you the idea of what they're thinking here. So this is written by someone called Ollie Korf. More than 4/5 of baby boomer households have spare bedrooms that are being left unused as the young bear the brunt of the housing crisis. And before I go further, I think this is just more than a housing crisis, and you probably know what I mean. I've been talking about the inflation of the money supply. That's what's hurting the housing. That's what's making housing unaffordable, not just for the young, but even the elderly who don't own. They're feeling the pinch. And of course, inflation is an insidious process performed by the top 1% that we're going to look at, who own the bulk of England, the territory of England, the bulk of the land. So, and they benefit from inflation because they have hard assets, they have the land. So it's not as clear cut. Of course, the Telegraph is not going to talk about that, but let's continue. Pensioners are clinging to their family-sized homes long after the children have moved out, with 84.1% of households where an over 65-year-old was the main residence considered under-occupied in most recent census. Well, I guess they're not concerned about all the empty rooms in Buckingham Palace and all the other palaces that the royal family owns, right? They're not concerned about all the empty homes and flats in the West End owned by Middle Eastern oligarchs, by other oligarchs from all over the world. Well, anyway, among households where the main resident was aged 25 and 34, the under-occupied rate falls to 53.3%. There are now just under 9.8 million households across England with at least 2 spare bedrooms. Separate data from the latest English housing survey shows this is up 1.7 million in a decade and means at least 19.6 million rooms are going unused and are locked out of the housing market. Well, I told you I'm the last of the baby boomers. My wife was born in 66, but I guess you could consider her a baby boomer. And yes, my daughter has left home and we have spare bedrooms. So are they going to come after my house? Well, they'd have to walk over our dead body first. That's all I can say. But I'm going to stop right here, but you can see where they're going. Whenever they come out with these articles and studies, it's like they're trying to convince people that you're doing something wrong. You know, you got to sell your house and buy somewhere smaller. But they talk about the fact that there's not enough retirement home building out there. But that's part of the inflation as well, right? When you make it unaffordable, not just unaffordable to buy and rent, you make it unaffordable for new building, I would say. But and I would also add that the availability of land out there is very small, and we're going to look at that in a moment. Just want to read like the most liked comment that we've had here in this article, and it's from someone called a fish named Wanda, and it's got 311 likes. It's, what's with the communist style thinking on housing? If I can afford a big house, what business is it of anyone else? I'm planning on upsize on retirement, room for hobbies, guests, and grandchildren. Best solution for the housing crisis, not importing 800,000 new people each year needing housing. Well, that's the other problem as well. But I think the underlying problem is inflation of the currency, which is performed by the people we're going to look into now. And I remember this article because I covered it, I think, back in 2019. So 5 years ago almost now, April 2019. And it's in the Mail, and it says, revealed how half of England is owned by less than 1% of its population, with oligarchs. Well, yeah, they're not just Russian. We have oligarchs here too. We have the hedge fund, the private equity oligarchs, the people who finance both sides of the political aisle, not just the Tories. City bankers and aristocracy among those with an astonishingly unequal share. And here I'm not saying we need to do land reform. I'm just pointing out that they come out with these studies about baby boomers not, being selfish, but they won't cover this. And this is food for thought, of course. How are we going to solve this problem? I don't know. But it says research revealed around 25,000 landowners control half of England. About 30% of country is owned by aristocracy and 18% by corporations. That's 48%. The Queen, that's an old one, so we have to read the King now. The King and Royals hold around 1.4%, and the public sector has 8.5%. That's the government. Critics say it shows how astonishingly equal division of wealth and power is. Well, I think they made a mistake there. It's astonishingly unequal. That's why I got confused there. But this article, I want to go through most of it because it's really interesting and it wakes you up to what the real problem is, or that the baby boomers are not the only problem. Half of England is owned by less than 1% of the population. New figures have revealed. I think that's amazing. Analysis of land registry documents and maps for a new book shows just 25,000 landowners control huge swathes of the country, despite the population being 55 million. The research found the 25,000 is mostly made up of members of the aristocracy and large corporations, with critics saying it shows how astonishingly unequal the distribution of wealth is in England. And the data also used to create a full breakdown of land ownership across England, showing the aristocracy alone holds 30% of the country. Another 18% belongs to corporations, while city oligarchs or bankers own 17% of the land. Public sector bodies, including councils and universities, own another 8.5%, while private homeowners, conservation charities, and the Church of England owning around 7.5% combined. The research by activists and author Guy Shrubsole also shows that if the land was distributed equally across the entire population of 55 million, each person, not each family, each person would have around an acre of land. And this is just in England. It doesn't add Scotland. Scotland is has a very low density, by the way. Anyway, it has been shared with The Guardian and shows major landowners include the Queen, businessman James Dyson, and water firm United Utilities. In his book, Mr. Shrubsole wrote, a few thousand dukes, baronets, and country squires own far more land than all of Middle England put together. Land ownership in England is astonishingly unequal, heavily concentrated in the hands of a tiny elite. So here's the map, there's a map and some data here. So aristocracy and gentry, 30%. Corporations, 18%. Oligarchs, and I include the bankers in oligarchs. I don't know why we only call foreign Russians who have property here oligarchs. So they're all oligarchs. The oligarchs own 17%. There's 17% unaccounted, 8.5% public sector. Well, here it comes to us, the homeowners. We own 5% of the land. So it's in this context that I find the article by the Telegraph comical, really, blaming people like me and others for this housing shortage. So conservation charities, 2%. The Crown and the Royals, 1.4%. Church of England, they own quite a bit, 0.5%. Another 17% of the land in England is undeclared, which means it has not been sold on the open market and therefore does not have to be logged with the land registry. It is likely this section also belongs to aristocrats who have kept it in their family for generations and never sold it. So there you go. So the aristocrats, you can add 17%. So they own almost half of all the land in England if you add it to the 30% that they officially have already. So you must be thinking, Mario, so what's the solution? It's not simple, but I think we need to know what the problem is, and just to focus on the people who own 5% of the land and saying that they're selfish. Well, some of the people that own that 5%, because the baby boomers don't own the whole 5%. It's more, there's more division there. Yeah, that's totally, I think, unfair. And the other thing I would say, inflation, inflation, inflation. The people who own most of the land, the aristocracy, the corporations, the bankers, they're the ones who are close to the Bank of England funny currency, and it's not even money, funny currency spigot. They're able to leverage their land holdings to get bigger loans, and then they go and buy all the choice properties. They buy other assets that are valuable, and we at the bottom get stuck with the debased currency. So, yes, what's the solution? Well, the solution will come from the people, but they need to be aware of it, and that's what I'm trying to do here. I think the first important thing is to stop the inflation, abolish the Bank of England. But unfortunately, as you can see, these people have a lot of power and they own most of the country. So what's the other option? Well, move somewhere else where you can buy land. But that's not that easy. And by elsewhere, I mean not in Great Britain. Maybe in Russia, there's plenty of land. But Russia is bad, right? Or move to Oklahoma if you could go back in time, right, and ride with the Sooners and the Oklahoma land grab. They gave it for free. You just had to stake it. I'm sure they'll never do that here. But anyway, back to the Treasury market. And yes, it's a bit of a change of subject, but actually it's related to that, to the inflation, because this is how the elite and the government finance themselves to keep perpetuating this system. So it's important that we look at the US Treasury market and the gilt market as well in the UK, because they're having to finance so much now. It's at record levels that demand starting to wane. So Zero Hedge reported yesterday, yields hit session high as bonds slump after record 5-year auction tails. 90 minutes after the Treasury sold a record $63 billion in ugly 2-year auction at 1 p.m., we got the day's second coupon auction when we just saw another record, this time $64 billion in 5-year notes. And I would say maybe 30 years ago, that $127 billion total, that would be the auction schedule for the whole year. And now it's in one day they sell 127 billion. So you might be asking, what are tails? Well, I've referenced my handbook of fixed income securities by Fabozzi and Fabozzi. It's kind of like the Bible of the bond market. I've had this for over 30 years. When I started out in the business, I bought this to learn about bonds. So we're going to go to page 143 where they talk about a tail in a Treasury auction. And we're going to start with what an auction is all about. It says the auction for Treasury securities is conducted on a competitive bid basis. Competitive bids must be submitted on a yield basis. So what that means, you don't say I'm going to pay 100 for that bond. You say I want to pay 5.25%. You bid on a yield basis. Non-competitive tenders may also be submitted for up to $1 million face amount. And this might have changed now. It might be a bigger amount because this book is over 30 years old. Such tenders are based on only on quantity, not yield. So on a non-competitive bid, you say, I want to bid 10 million, and you just say you want to bid 10 million. It's non-competitive. You don't show the price. The price paid by non-competitive bidders is the average price of all the competitive bids accepted. The auction results are determined by first deducting the total non-competitive tenders and non-public purchases, such as purchases by the Federal Reserve itself, from the total securities being auctioned. The remainder is the amount to be awarded to the competitive bidders. The lowest yield, i.e. highest price, bidders are awarded securities at their bid price. Successively higher yielding bidders are awarded securities at their bid price until the total amount offered, less non-competitive tenders and non-public purchases, is awarded. The highest yield accepted by the Treasury is referred to as the stop yield. And bidders at that price are awarded a percentage of their total tender offer. So here it comes. The difference between the average yield of all the bids accepted by the Treasury and the stop yield is called the tail. So when the difference is very small, the tail, it means that the market's liquid, there's a lot of demand, it's competitive, the auction. When the auction tail is longer or bigger, it means that it's not as liquid, there's not as much demand, and that's why it's important to look at the tail. I worked in this market for years, and I still think it's under control, but we need to keep an eye on it. The other thing we need to look at, of course, is the bid to cover ratio. And this is very simple. It's just the amount of bids that you've had per amount of treasuries that has been sold. So if you've got a total of 3 billion bids for 1 billion offered, the bid to cover is 3 to 1. So they say here the bid to cover was a modest improvement from last month's 2.31, rising to 2.41, but still below the recent range of 2.45. So yeah, things are still okay, but I thought I'd explain to you what a tail was. As far as the bid to cover is concerned, if we get into the ones, like 1 point, the one handle, that's a bad sign. And if we get below 1, that's really bad. That means that there's not enough demand. I think hell will freeze over before the Fed and the Treasury allow that to happen. So that's where we are. So let's quickly look at the markets this morning. It's 8:30 a.m. London time, and the sun is coming out. Spot gold is at 2,038. It's up $6. High is 38. We're right near the highs. The 2,040 level, that's important. Why? Well, because that was the settlement price last year. So if gold goes up above 2,040, it means it's up on the year. And that, I think you will see that they're going to cap it there, try to cap it there today. If not, I think we could go make a good move higher. Silver is up 13 cents, 22.65, right near the highs of 70. Stock market is, there's not much going on. I won't go over it. In terms of the currencies, we got the dollar down about a third versus the yen, but the rest of the currencies are pretty much unchanged as well. Let's look at the Aussie dollar. Aussie dollar is up about 0.2, 65.50. Dollar, the loonie is unchanged. Kiwi dollar is unchanged. What about commodities? Well, crude oil is up 0.25%, 77.65. Brent is up 0.25 as well, just below 82. And platinum still is stuck around that 890 level. Palladium, which we saw there's a special at Miles Franklin, that's up $2, trading at 968. And high-grade copper is up 0.5% at 385. So let's quickly look at the Treasury market, see where the yields are this morning. So we've got the 10-year yield down 4 basis points at 426. The 2-year and the 5-year are down about 3, despite those auctions yesterday. So still under control. The bond market, the bond markets, the UK gilt yields The 2 years at 428, that's down about 1.6 basis points, and the 5 year is trading around 402. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.